The folks at Sunco have been designing and manufacturing farm equipment since 1980. We stopped in to visit them recently at the Farm Progress Show.
Yeah, so there's three main things about a saber-tooth row cleaner that are key features of it. The first one's going to be the disc separation we have. So we have a lead disc and a trail disc. The reason we do that is very simple. I don't want both of those discs to compete for the same piece of residue. So if I have a lead disc, that lead disc is able to clear that residue before the rear disc can tie onto it. When you don't have that separation, it'll actually plug that unit because it can't rip that residue apart. The second thing is our tooth design, our swept-back tooth design that we first came out with. We were the first company to come out with that. But what that does, it actually releases that trash on the upward rotation of the disc, and it's not going to hairpin any of that residue into the seed bed. So it's very important to keep that seed bed as clean as possible. And then the last thing that we do that I think is probably our key feature is the disc concavity. And what that does is that concavity creates rotation with that blade and it keeps it spinning, but it also rolls that residue out of the way instead of sliding it out of the way. If I roll that residue over, it's going to stay in place. If I slide out of the way, it's going to have a tendency to fall back on itself. And obviously a disc is meant to be run at an angle, where a straight blade is not meant to be run at an angle. And so running that disc at the angle, the way it's meant to be, it increases our bearing life because it's actually creating that rotation through the process. So.
Okay, and what features make the Nutri 3 Precision Fertilizer Applicator the best way to apply?
Same thing with the Nutri, a couple of small features that don't look a whole lot different than our competitors, but do make a big difference. One of the main features, we have a notch disc and a smooth disc. We put that notch disc on there. The reason we do that is if you have a smooth disc, two smooth discs, or a single smooth disc, in loose soils or in wet soils, you have a tendency to lose traction. As soon as you lose traction, those blades quit turning and they end up plugging up. What that notch disc does for is it creates traction like a gear. It catches that soil surface and keeps everything spinning, allows me to continue to cut and not plug that unit up.
And why should producers consider applying starter fertilizer?
Starter fertilizer is a huge one. It's just so much of our yield in that corn crop especially is set early on in that plant's life. And so we want to make everything as easy as possible for that plant early on. And the way we apply that fertilizer, we're applying it at consistent spacing from the seed. It's always going to be consistent based on the seed depth, and it's going to be very easy for that early, very young plant to uptake those nutrients because it's placed in that exact proximity that it needs it.
Okay, and are you seeing an increase in sales of implement guidance products?
We're definitely seeing a lot of increase in implement guidance products. We got probably two main groups of guys that are coming back around to our guidance products, especially our Accutrack 3-point guidance hitch. The first group is going to be a commercial producer. He's got resistant weeds that he's not able to kill with a chemical solution. So they're going back to cultivation and using the Accutrack steel as cultivators. And then the other big group is guys that are either completely organic or transitioning acres to the organic production. They're obviously needing a cultivation option because they have no chemical option with their production practices. So.
And why are producers still using the Sunco Accutrack when they have RTK guidance systems on the tractor?
Yeah, we get that question a lot. A guy says, well, I've got RTK on the tractor, why do I need guidance on the implement? It's very simple. It's the fact that the RTK is guaranteeing the accuracy at the tractor. It says nothing about the accuracy at the implement. And so what we find happens a lot is the tractor is running straight down that guidance line with sub-inch accuracy, but the planter has weaved back and forth behind there. The planter's run down the hill. I've got tillage practices like strip till that have caused that planter to move left and right. And so when I come back and cultivate that crop, the crop has not come up where the guidance line is. So I actually need to steer off where that crop is at. And then the other issue that you have with a mounted implement is when I steer that tractor to the left, the mounted implement behind the rear axle is actually going to go to the right. So momentarily, I actually send that implement in the wrong direction. Even with RTK, I'm still sending it in the wrong direction momentarily. And that's the other thing the Accutrack fixes. It allows that front of that tractor to go left and allows that implement to stay in place and not take out crops. So.
And how about in the booth here? What's the feedback? I saw you visiting with some customers there. What are they asking?
Yeah, we just got a lot of guys looking at making improvements to their current planters, and then also guys looking at purchasing new planters, looking at what are they going to put on that new planter. And then had a lot of interest, of course, on the guidance products. Guys obviously looking at going back to cultivation. So it's a tight market right now. Everybody knows that the commodity prices, we'd obviously like them to be a little bit higher. And so guys are looking at ways, what can I do from a production standpoint to maybe maintain the current yield I have, but do it with a fewer amount of dollars going into that crop. And starter fertilizer is one way to do that, and cultivation is definitely another way to do that to minimize the expenditures going into that crop, but not necessarily affect the yield or even improve the yield coming out of the backside. So.
Thanks for being a part of the Machinery Pete Spotlight video.